Keanu Reeves sat in a busy cafe, calm and unbothered. A wealthy businessman sneered, belittling him in front of everyone. But what Keanu said next left the entire cafe in stunned silence and changed a life forever. Before we continue, if you like this video, subscribe to the channel and comment what you think. The cafe was lively that afternoon, a soft buzz of conversations filling the air. Keanu Reeves sat quietly at a corner table, sipping his black coffee. Dressed in his usual understated style, dark jeans, a worn-out leather jacket, and a simple black t-shirt, he blended in effortlessly. No entourage, no security, just him. And that was exactly how he liked it. He enjoyed moments like these, just being an ordinary guy lost in the rhythm of the world around him. The gentle clinking of cups, the distant laughter of friends reconnecting, the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee, it was a rare kind of peace. But peace never lasted long. A loud voice suddenly broke through the hum of the cafe. "Look who it is! The so-called nicest guy in Hollywood." The words dripped with sarcasm. Keanu barely reacted. He didn't even turn his head. But the rest of the cafe did. All eyes shifted toward the man who had just entered, a well-dressed businessman in his late 40s, wearing an expensive suit and a smug expression. He was flanked by two younger men, most likely colleagues or assistants. They smirked, feeding off his arrogance. Keanu took another sip of his coffee. The businessman strutted closer, his polished shoes clicking against the tiled floor. "What's the matter? Too famous to acknowledge a fan?" Still, Keanu said nothing. The tension in the cafe thickened. People exchanged glances, some whispering amongst themselves. A young woman near the counter muttered, "Why is he being so rude?" The businessman smirked, encouraged by the attention. He leaned against Keanu's table. "I don't get it. Why do people act like you're some kind of saint? You're just an actor. You play pretend for a living." Keanu set his cup down, finally looking up. His expression was unreadable, calm, patient. The businessman wasn't done. He scoffed. "I've worked my whole life to be successful. You got lucky. You say a few lines in front of a camera and suddenly the world treats you like a hero." Silence. The cafe was hanging on every word, waiting to see how Keanu would react. The businessman smirked. He thought he had won. And then Keanu spoke, softly, steady. "You're right." The businessman blinked. "What?" Keanu nodded. "You're right. I'm not a hero. I'm not special." He gestured to his cup. "I drink the same coffee as you, walk the same streets, breathe the same air." He paused. "But you're wrong about one thing." The businessman frowned. Keanu leaned forward slightly, his voice calm but firm. "Luck didn't get me here. Life did. Pain did. Loss did." His eyes darkened for just a moment. "I've lost people I loved. I've seen struggle. I've seen loneliness. And I know what it feels like to have nothing." The cafe was completely still. Keanu exhaled. "So no, I don't think I'm special. But if being kind, if treating people with respect makes me different, then maybe that says more about the world than it does about me." The businessman opened his mouth, but no words came out. Keanu stood up. He left a generous tip on the table, picked up his leather jacket, and turned to leave. As he passed the businessman, he paused for just a moment. "You've worked your whole life for success." Keanu met his eyes. "Maybe try working for kindness too." And with that, he walked out. The cafe erupted into quiet applause. The businessman, for the first time in a long time, had nothing to say. The cafe remained silent long after Keanu had walked out. People exchanged glances, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others murmuring in admiration. The businessman, who had been so sure of himself just moments ago, stood frozen. His face, once filled with arrogance, now carried something else entirely. Shock, embarrassment, maybe even a trace of regret. One of his younger colleagues finally broke the silence. He hesitated. "That was Keanu Reeves, right?" The businessman clenched his jaw. "Yeah, so what?" The other assistant chuckled nervously. "Dude, you just tried to embarrass Keanu Reeves and got wrecked in front of an entire cafe." The businessman glared at him. "Shut up?" But the damage was already done. People were still whispering. Someone had even pulled out their phone and started typing furiously, probably posting about what had just happened. It wouldn't be long before the entire internet knew. "Come on," the businessman grumbled, adjusting his suit jacket. "Let's get out of here." They hurried out of the cafe, but the weight of what had happened followed them. Meanwhile, Keanu stepped out into the crisp afternoon air. He exhaled slowly, running a hand through his slightly unkempt hair. He wasn't angry. He never was. He had dealt with people like that before, those who measured success in dollars instead of decency. It never surprised him, but it always disappointed him. As he walked down the sidewalk, he felt a tap on his shoulder. "Excuse me, Mr. Reeves?" He turned to see a young woman, probably in her mid-20s, standing there, slightly out of breath. She had been in the cafe, sitting near the counter. Keanu gave her a kind smile. "Hey," she hesitated, suddenly looking nervous. I just wanted to say that was incredible. What you said back there, I've never seen anyone handle something like that with so much grace." Keanu shrugged. "It's just words." "No," she shook her head. "It wasn't just words, it was respect. And honestly, I needed to hear that today." Keanu studied her for a moment. There was something in her eyes, an exhaustion that went beyond just a long day. He gestured to a nearby bench. "Want to sit?" She looked surprised, then nodded quickly. "Yeah, sure." They sat down, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she sighed. "I had a terrible day." She gave a small, humorless laugh. "Actually, a terrible month." Keanu listened, his expression calm and open. She fidgeted with her fingers. "I lost my job last week. My landlord just raised my rent, and my ex..." She exhaled sharply. "Let's just say I found out he wasn't the person I thought he was." Keanu didn't interrupt. He simply let her talk. "I came to the cafe today just to clear my head, but then I saw what happened back there." She looked up at him. "And when you said that kindness matters more than success, I don't know, it just hit me, like really hit me." Keanu gave a small nod. People spend their whole lives chasing money, but at the end of the day, no one remembers how much you had. They remember how you made them feel. She swallowed hard. "I think I forgot that for a while." Keanu smiled softly. "Life has a way of reminding us." A long pause, then she chuckled. "I still can't believe I'm sitting on a bench talking to Keanu Reeves right now." Keanu smirked. "I'm just a guy drinking coffee." She laughed, genuinely this time. "Right." Then without thinking, she blurted, "Can I give you a hug?" Keanu didn't hesitate. "Of course." She hugged him tightly, like someone who needed it more than she realized. And for the first time in a long time, she felt okay. The young woman pulled away from the hug, wiping her eyes quickly, embarrassed. "Sorry, that was probably weird." Keanu shook his head with a warm smile. "Not weird at all. Sometimes a hug is the best thing you can give someone." She laughed softly. "Yeah, guess I needed that." For a moment, they just sat in comfortable silence. The city buzzed around them, cars passing, people walking, life moving as it always did. But for her, something felt different, lighter. Keanu checked his watch, then glanced at her. "Have you eaten yet?" She blinked. No, actually." Keanu stood up. "Come on." She frowned. "Wait, where are we going?" He grinned. "You need a good meal. I know a place." She hesitated. "You don't have to do that. I mean, you've already done so much just by listening." Keanu shrugged. "Consider it a small kindness. Besides, I hate eating alone." She couldn't help but smile. "All right then." And just like that, she found herself walking down the street with Meanwhile, a few blocks away, the businessman from the cafe was pacing angrily in front of his office building. His two assistants stood awkwardly beside him, unsure of what to say. "Unbelievable," he muttered under his breath. "I can't believe that guy humiliated me in front of everyone." One of the assistants coughed. "I mean, you kind of started it, sir." The businessman shot him a glare. "Excuse me?" The assistant gulped. "Nothing." The other assistant, trying to change the subject, glanced at his phone. His eyes suddenly widened. Sir? You might want to see this." He turned the screen toward his boss. The businessman frowned and leaned in. His stomach dropped. It was a viral post. Someone from the cafe had recorded the entire encounter and uploaded it. "Stranger insults Keanu Reeves in public. His response is pure class." The video already had thousands of likes, retweets, and comments, and every single one of them was in Keanu's favor. This is why Keanu Reeves is a legend. That businessman just got a free lesson in humility. How do you come after Keanu Reeves of all people? The man is basically an angel. The businessman felt his face go hot. No way. He scrolled through the replies, his anger turning into panic. His name wasn't in the video, but people recognized him. Some had already figured out who he was. His LinkedIn, his company, everything was being dug up. "This is bad," he muttered. His assistant sighed. Yeah, real bad. The young woman still couldn't believe this was happening. She was now sitting across from Keanu Reeves in a small, cozy diner. It wasn't fancy, just a quiet spot where people actually cared about good food. Keanu ordered a simple sandwich and coffee. She got pancakes. As they waited for their food, she finally asked the question that had been sitting in her mind. Can I ask you something? Keanu nodded. Sure. She hesitated. You didn't have to say anything back there. In the cafe, I mean. Most people would have ignored him or walked away. But you didn't. Why? Keanu thought for a moment, then answered simply, because people like that think they can get away with it. They push others down to make themselves feel taller. If no one stands up to them, they never learn. She nodded slowly. Yeah, that makes sense. Keanu smirked. And well, I also don't like bullies. She chuckled. Their food arrived, and they ate while talking about random things, movies, books, life. It was the most normal, human conversation she had in a long time, and for the first time in weeks, she felt okay. The warm scent of freshly brewed coffee filled the little diner as Keanu and the young woman continued their meal. She couldn't believe how natural this felt, sitting across from Keanu Reeves, talking like old friends. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't drowning in stress. She wasn't overthinking every little thing. She was just present. Keanu finished his sandwich and wiped his hands with a napkin. So what's next for you? She blinked. What do you mean? He leaned back. You said earlier that things haven't been great, but now that you've let some of it out, what's next? She hesitated. No one had asked her that before. What was next? For so long, she'd just been moving through life on autopilot, carrying her worries like a weight on her shoulders. She never thought about what came after. I don't know, she admitted. I guess I never stopped to think about it. Keanu nodded thoughtfully. That's okay. Sometimes just taking the next step is enough. She let that sink in. Maybe he was right. Maybe she didn't need to have everything figured out right now. Maybe just moving forward, one step at a time, was enough. Then a sudden buzz interrupted the moment. Keanu glanced at his phone. His face remained calm, but something in his eyes shifted. She noticed. Everything okay? He smiled, slipping his phone back into his pocket. Yeah, just something I should probably check out. She tilted her head. Something important? Keanu chuckled. Not really, just a guy who made a mistake and is about to learn a lesson. She frowned in confusion, but Keanu just motioned for the waiter to bring the check. The young woman started to reach for her wallet, but Keanu shook his head. I got it. You really don't have to. I know, he said with a wink, but I want to. She sighed, smiling. You're really one of a kind, you know that? Keanu smirked. So I've been told. As they stepped out of the diner, the cool air hit them, carrying the distant hum of the city. Keanu stretched his arms, taking in a deep breath. The young woman adjusted her jacket. So, what now? Keanu gave her a reassuring smile. You keep moving forward, she nodded, taking his words to heart. And you? Keanu exhaled. Me? I think I have one last thing to take care of today. She gave him a curious look, but he didn't say anything more. Instead, he simply patted her shoulder and walked off into the city. Meanwhile, the businessman sat stiffly in his office chair, scrolling through comment after comment. His face was pale. This wasn't just bad press. This was a full-blown disaster. His company's inbox was flooded with emails, some from clients demanding an explanation, others from angry people calling for boycotts. His PR manager stood nervously beside him. Sir, we need to get ahead of this. Maybe issue a statement. Absolutely not, he snapped. We do nothing. This will blow over. The PR manager hesitated. Sir, this is Keanu Reeves we're talking about. People love him, and right now, they hate you. The businessman's jaw clenched. I don't care. Ding. A new email notification popped up. Subject: Let's talk. From Keanu Reeves. The businessman's stomach dropped. The PR manager peeked over his shoulder. Oh, wow. The businessman slowly clicked on the email. It was short, simple. I think we should have a conversation. I'll be at your office in an hour. The businessman swallowed hard. This has to be fake, right? The PR manager shook his head. No, sir. I think he's actually coming. The businessman felt a cold sweat form on the back of his neck. This was not going to be a good day. The businessman sat at his desk, his hands trembling slightly as he checked the time. 1 hour. That's what Keanu's email had said. And knock, knock. A firm, steady sound echoed through the office. The businessman's stomach twisted into a knot. He forced a breath and straightened his suit. "Come in." The door opened, and there he was. Keanu Reeves stepped inside, his presence somehow calm yet commanding. He wasn't angry, he wasn't frowning, but the businessman could feel the weight of his presence like an iron grip around his chest. Keanu shut the door behind him and took a seat across from the businessman's desk. For a moment there was silence. Then Keanu leaned forward. "Let's talk." The businessman cleared his throat. "Listen, Mr. Reeves, Keanu held up a hand. "Before you explain, let's make something clear. I'm not here to argue. I'm not here to threaten you. I just want to understand." The businessman hesitated. Keanu tilted his head. "Tell me, why?" The businessman blinked. "Why? What?" Keanu's voice remained calm, but there was an edge to it. "Why did you go out of your way to insult me? You don't know me. We've never spoken before, so why?" The businessman swallowed hard. What was he supposed to say? That he just wanted to feel powerful? That he was bitter? That he resented how effortlessly respected Keanu was while he had to claw his way to the top? He couldn't say that, so instead he sighed and muttered, "It wasn't personal." Keanu nodded. "I figured." Silence. Then Keanu leaned back and crossed his arms. "Tell me something. Do you feel better now?" The businessman frowned. "What?" "After everything," Keanu said simply. "After the words you said, after the backlash, after sitting here and waiting for me to walk through that door, do you feel better?" The businessman looked away. "No," he admitted. Keanu nodded again, as if that answer was exactly what he expected. "That's the thing about putting negativity into the world," Keanu said softly. "It doesn't make you stronger. It doesn't lift you up. It just leaves you emptier." The businessman clenched his fists. He felt exposed, like Keanu was seeing through every excuse, every false confidence he had built up over the years. Keanu sighed. "I'm not here to punish you. The world has already done that for me." He gestured toward the businessman's phone, still buzzing with angry messages, lost deals, public outrage. "I don't need revenge," Keanu said simply. "I just hope that maybe, next time, you'll think before you speak." The businessman swallowed hard. Keanu stood up. "Take care of yourself," he said. And with that, he turned and walked out, leaving the businessman alone with his thoughts. Epilogue. 1 month later, the young woman stood outside the coffee shop, staring at the help wanted sign in the window. She took a deep breath. She could do this. She would do this. With a determined nod, she pushed open the door and stepped inside. From a distance, a man in a simple black jacket watched her go. Keanu smiled. Then he turned and disappeared into the crowd, leaving behind nothing but a small moment that changed lives. And maybe, just maybe, a lesson that would never be forgotten.